ourselves a batch of Shawnees, Commander.
Welcome to episode 4 of Coordinated Fire, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast where even bounty hunters give credits for a good cause. How we doing, guys?
Doing good.
Fantastic. Thank you for continuing the pun train, my friend.
This one was just kind of clever.
I like it. Given the event that we just played in, giving credits,
Yes, that was the joke.
I think it's
yes.
very, very
It was
appropriate.
the on theme.
I know.
Sean's
I like
caught up with the audience. Let's go. With that, Sean, I will pass it over to you because we did have a nice event this weekend. Do you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, we had the Battle for Breath 2025 at the KW Granite Club run by the KW Wargaming Guild, which is a fantastic group of individuals in the Kitchener-Waterloo area who play multiple games. Star Wars Shatterpoint was at the event. Star Wars Crisis Protocol, Infinity, Blood Bowl is very popular in the area, and one that actually kind of caught my eye that was really interesting was the Middle-earth strategy game.
Man, those tables looked
so good.
They looked bonkers. Yeah, so there's 5 games represented from the group. This event supports Cystic Fibrosis Canada. The group was able to do $5,000 last year, and they blew past their goal this year and gave a whopping $8,200 to Cystic Fibrosis Canada. I just want to say thank you to Alex, Scotty, and everybody involved at the KW Wargaming Guild. You guys did a fantastic job. As somebody that was an organizer for the event, I TO'd the Shatterpoint portion. I have yet to work with a group of individuals who care so much about what they do. Their passion shows through. They're extremely organized. It was very, very easy for me as a TO of this event to be involved and help out from top to bottom, Friday to Sunday. Fantastic event, and one I think we can agree on is probably one of the marquee events in Ontario throughout the year.
Yeah, that would be the point that I was going to echo as well. We went last year, again this year, and this is going to be a go-to event that I'm going to look forward to every single year. It is a fantastic crew, a fantastic vibe. I think everyone went in with a just fun, casual approach. Let's jam some games. The support from all the different game communities was incredible. And it was just a bunch of people together having fun playing some miniatures games. And yes. I don't think I have a single negative thing to say about this.
No, everybody worked together, Friday, putting things together, tables up, chairs up, and then on Sunday, tables down, chairs down. Everybody helped out. It is truly what I would call a community event. And I told Alex and Scotty afterwards, I said, listen, you want me to run Shatterpoint here every year? I'm your guy. I will run Shatterpoint every single year for this event, no problem. I would also like to thank Atomic Mass Games and Asmodee Canada for sending over the MCP package that they did with the War of Kings, the Mojo Ball, the Crisis cards, and then the number of, I think there was 8 Apocalypse Gold cards. And then Kyle, thank you for securing the Elite kit for us for the Shatterpoint portions. So both games were supported with new items, particularly the Elite kit for Shatterpoint. So thank you again to Asmodee and Atomic Mass Games for that support.
It's a great kit.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great. It's fantastic.
Kit.
Yes. It's a kit. It's a kit. Yeah, the gold kits are amazing for the top 4. The plastic one's cool too. I like it. Let's break it down, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, Sean, you ran the event, as you mentioned. Titus and I got to be players at the event. Overall, incredible game. So we did 3 rounds Saturday, 2 rounds Sunday, bringing the overall event to a close. But it was just an incredible 2 days of games.
I have to say, it was really nice to spread it out over 2 days. Like, we did an event you could theoretically do in one day, and we've done it before where we did 5 rounds in one day. But spreading it out meant we got to, some of us got to sleep in, finished at a reasonable time, and then the next day, again, very relaxed vibe, and you get out of there, get home at a decent time. It was great. I was skeptical of having only 2 games the second day, but it turned out good. So
it was nice to play 2, pack up, and then go. And I'm actually very curious because this is the way that a lot of the GTs are run in Europe. They do straight rounds, and I'm very curious maybe next season if we run a grand tournament here 2 days across 5 rounds, and what the response would be like that from players here.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation for sure. I think it's a good format. I do certainly think I prefer it for this style of event. I can say that pretty confidently. Despite some talk about it, I think we had way less drops for day 2 than I think we were expecting, which was really cool to see the community just come out to get their 5 games in. From a GT perspective, there's 2 sides to the coin, right? On one, it's really nice for everybody to be able to get the same amount of games in. Everybody paid for the ticket, they get the same amount of games, and that is a really cool thing to be able to do. My hesitance on the full Swiss style event is a top cut just allows a comeback story. And I think we've seen a few of those instances where, maybe you go 3-1 on the first day and you're able to bring it back and win the event on day 2. And I think that opportunity for that comeback is pretty cool, but I really see both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. The standout for me was Ewoks. Tons of Ewoks at this event, and a model that I've always loved, Freedom Fire Leia. Seemed to do very, very well. She was in the top winning list. I think she was represented, correct me if I'm wrong here, at least 4 or 5 different lists. And she's
4 players brought her.
Yep, 4. Okay.
But she was played in 13 games.
Yeah. And again, a model that I played very early on. I think you, Kyle, and I actually got some games when I was kind of on the Ewok train for a little while. I've always thought she's great, and being one of the only models now with coordinated fire exposed, I think is very appealing. And I want to dive into post event here playing low grade Freedom Fire. I think
I would also like to shout out our second place list played by Riley Maxwell, and he was playing Separatists, specifically Dooku Grievous, which is not something we see much anymore. And I just want to say, I will quote him verbatim. He's going to take a break from Separatists because they're too good. So I just want to throw that out into the world.
Wow.
Riley believes Separatists are too good for the meta. So
maybe in the hands of Riley.
Yeah. I mean, he did great, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, give him a try.
That is amazing. Yeah,
they're good.
Dooku Grievous,
Dooku Grievous.
Yeah,
it was great.
We actually had 2 Separatist lists in the top 4 because we had Riley with Dooku Grievous and Alex Miller, which is one of the event organizers for Battle for Breath, played Cad Dooku.
Yeah, amazing, and tons of Cad too. Like in 1, 2, 3, like 3 out of the top 5 playing Cad as well. Eric played Cad as well too. Cad is alive and well post rebalance with just the era change, and that's the thing that you say all the time, Kyle. It's the thing we asked for, and I'm glad people have really taken to it and done the thing that we asked for.
Yeah, six players out of 23 brought Cad. He was played in 11 games. Came out of the event with a 64%. He won 7, lost 4.
That's good.
Cad had a great time, and I think just that era change was enough to make him one of the most flexible primaries in the game. Every list wants some ways to get some extra force, and he just provides that with 9 squad points wherever you want to put him. Titus, I know you've been having some fun with him.
Yeah, I've been enjoying him. I think I'm going to put him down and move on to something else in the next little while, but playing him with bounty hunters was a lot of fun.
Going through a quick primary breakdown for the event, we saw our most taken primary as General Obi-Wan Kenobi, with 8 players bringing Kenobi and played in 21 games. Coming out of that with a 57% win rate. Obi had a great showing. We had Cassian next with 7 players and 17 games, with a similar 59% win rate. Ando next at 6 players and 14 games. Anakin, 5 players and 13 games. We saw a lot of Republic, bounty hunters, and Ewoks. So it's really clear that people were excited to play some things post rebalance. I think as a testament to just the spirit of this event, people brought what they wanted to play. I think really interesting given some current meta where we are is we have a few primaries that didn't see any play at the event. Some not so surprising. So no Hondo, no Kit, no Padme, no Fulcrum Ahsoka. Some that I would say are a little more surprising. No Lando, which has been a pretty prominent one for our community at the very least. But I think Cassian and Cad took a lot of that scoundrel space for a lot of list building. No Han Solo. And the big ones, no Vader 2 and no Iden at the event.
Nobody likes Empire anymore, apparently. I am
Nobody
a
likes
man on
Inferno.
a lonely island out here, apparently.
I will say thank you to a wonderful community that came with the spirit of the event in mind.
Come
Wow.
on.
Okay.
Vader 2 would have been completely reasonable to come.
And we saw some Empire. We had 5 players bring the Grand Inquisitor to the event. We had 4 Moff Gideons, 2 Vader 1s.
Krennic?
Yeah, 2 Krennic, 2 Thrawn, 2 CT. There's some Empire in there, but fun new Empire.
Fun new Empire. Yeah. The old toys go away for a little bit. No, I mean, we knew this was going to happen. The Galactic Republic surge is upon us, rebalance, and like you said, I joke, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a combination of new stuff on the table along with stuff that maybe hasn't seen the table in some time.
And like we're getting a resurgence of Inquisitors too. It's anything that's been touched up really is getting a lot of play. So
Yeah, it will mellow out, I think, probably. Well, we're June now, right? By the fall or maybe the winter, I think we'll maybe, this and then just kind of like mellow out a bit.
I will say that Fourth Sister and Fifth Brother were tied for our most taken supports at the event.
really nice.
Yep, real good. Fourth Sister, really, really good. She might be better than Fifth Brother. I think the range attack is just what gets it for me with her.
I
That
think
is
they're
a
pretty
huge
comparable. It
Yeah,
depends what you want to do with them because protection and steadfast is still huge. Like
There is.
you can't
I
discount that.
like versatility in my units, and I think the range attack just makes her so versatile.
for sure.
Not a surprise to anyone here, but tough units are my jam. And yeah, protection and steadfast goes a long way for Fifth Brother for me. But
Yeah.
the good news is they're both incredible.
Keep in mind, Thrawn can give Fourth Sister that protection.
After she eats one, but
Yeah, well, I'm glossing over that part.
yeah, subtle details.
But that's also going to happen. So
Right.
I'm on board.
Absolutely.
All right, Titus, I will throw it over to you. What was your list for the event?
I know I talked about bringing Cad Padme for a couple weeks, but leading up to the event was talking on the Zion's Finest Slack with Sam Sweden and JK and a couple other guys. We were talking about the Cad Bounty Hunter list with Cassian as the second primary, and it's something I'd already played. I knew I liked it. It was something that had been tempting me to switch to for a while. And what really solidified it for me was we were discussing how Boosh, so Leia in disguise, was actually really good in Cassian's secondary slot for that list. And I was skeptical because Boosh has never been good, but the more we discussed it, the more I looked at her ability card, the more I was like, okay, there might be something here. So what the list ended up being was Cad 8 and Bounty Hunters. Then on the other side, Cassian, Boosh, and IG. Now, I already like the IG-88 IG combo there. Bounty Hunters are just a really good generic support for that kind of list, for a Scoundrels list. And then Boosh, what's nice about her is her tactic repositions a spy, including herself if she needs the movement. But Cassian's also a spy. Then for Cassian's part, he wants at least one rebel tag, which usually means you have to payday something if you're going all bounty hunters like this. But Boosh, she's a bounty hunter as well as a rebel and as well as a spy. So she gets all the benefit of all of Cassian's tag synergies while also getting that rebel alliance stuff. So Cassian's active ability that dashes a rebel and then they get a hunker if they're a spy. Like it goes perfectly into that spot. And then his Shatterpoint, it just gives Sharpshooter 2, Impact 2. If you Shatterpoint Boosh, not only does she get Sharpshooter 2 and Impact 2, but if she does a low blow, she gets a free focus. Beyond that, even if you don't have the Force or don't want to use low blow, she still gets a reposition on her tactic. So she can still move up a full advanced distance, and you can just pretend, oh yeah, that was my move action, but I get a free focus. and effectively treat it that way. So that brings her from 6 dice up to 9, which is already good. Then if you're attacking something that is on a point, you can then add IG-88's engineering success, which brings her up to 12 dice. So her expertise is bad, but if you're rolling 12 dice, the expertise is a little less relevant. And it turns out that Bouche actually has the highest damage potential of any bounty hunter secondary in the game, tied with Jango Fett. They can both hit 10 damage, which can one-shot most things in the game.
I did not know that about her.
Yeah.
Brand new information.
So that is something I did know before, because I was looking at some weird Hondo
It could just never
combinations.
get there.
But that's the thing. Even with the 12 dice, I never had her reach it. But, hitting 6 or 7 damage is still super relevant. She's not likely to one-shot anything, but she can finish things off very reliably.
She's a good follow-up.
Yeah, she's a very good follow-up. I had her finish off Anakin in one of my games, which is really nice, especially with her passive that she gets extra momentum unless your opponent pays force to stop it. So she can, with the extra dice, is much more viable and has options that I don't think she has in any other list.
Yeah, so I think with that spot in that list, I think your other best option is Dengar.
Yep.
Who's a hard model to leave at home.
Well, for sure. I had him in my box as a honorary mention.
So what were the pros and cons there? Is that a choice you would make again?
Yeah, over the course of the weekend, Bouche was an all-star. Like, she was amazing. I usually was shatter pointing either her or IG-11, and they're both very good options. I have no regrets with taking her. Dengar would have been nice in a couple spots just because reserving for free is very handy. But apart from that, like, it was great. Like, I thought it was a really good choice. And even just like with Cassian's revenge trigger, the fact that because she's a spy, it's a reposition instead of an advance, that let me contest points on several occasions that I couldn't have any other way. So
it does add some out of activation movement, I think the list desperately.
Yes. It can only go to her or Cassian in terms of her tactic, but like it makes Cassian more relevant in the game too. The other half was Kenobi, General Kenobi, with Rex and the 212, which are, is standard Republic fare. On the other side, I had Ahsoka, Jedi No More, with Nadar and Phil's clones. And I did talk about this list previously on the cast, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's a very defensive list with an absurd amount of healing. And I played this into an Anakin Kiadi list, and let me tell you, Nadar, while maybe not the toughest thing around, is really good for just shadowing Anakin around the board. Everywhere he goes, he turns around, there's the fish man, just tailing him. Like, it was especially funny for me because it was on first contact. So it was like Nadar just became Jason Voorhees. It like you think you killed him, and then he gets back up and keeps following you. It's just,
there he is. Yeah.
He ended up taking out both Anakin and Kiadi over the course of the game. Not by himself, obviously, but he got the kill on both of them because he was just always where they were, always following them, always right there.
That's amazing. And again, another model that's been kind of written off, Titus, that you've put into a list and are getting some pretty good, use out of the squeeze, I'll say.
Yeah, so let's call Nadar a relatively untested, but maybe controversial choice.
Yes.
The one I'm actually more curious about is Phil's clones. I see a ton of value with them with Phil and being able to move a bunch of Jedi around, but with reworked ARFs that are still incredible, with reworked 5 that I had some pretty good experience with. How did you feel about Phil's clones? Would you swap them out?
Not in this list with anything that needs the movement. So generally like Anakin or trying to think what else. Mace would probably rather something else. But with this list, Ahsoka is very mobile. Nadar is usually up where he needs to be. Rex and his clones over there are perfectly capable of getting where they need to be. I don't feel like I need that supporting fire dash. And the supporting fire heal was really nice throughout the game. This list is really doubling down on healing. They have the supporting fire heal, but they also have a heal and a shove on their second step of their tree. I have a very high opinion of healing in my lists. I seek it out a lot more than most people, I think.
I definitely want to try them. I don't know. The reworked ARFs are, I think, went from Republic's best clone unit to Republic's best clone unit. I think every clone unit has a place and a purpose, and that is such a better spot than they were. All right, we'll jump into what I played. I played an all Republic list.
Shocked.
These are the changes that I was really excited about, and I wanted to see how that would fare. I think in the past there were always some Republic lists that could do well and did have their place, but building a full Republic Premier was tough. You'd end up taking subpar support. While there's some really great secondary options, you would start to run out, and we're in a really great list building space. So I took Sabotage Showdown as a mission. So my list was Kiadi-Mundi, Shock T, 501st, with Anakin, Snips, and the ARF Troopers. This list is probably not news to anyone at this point. It's been covered quite a lot. I'll get to some of my thoughts here in a bit. Alongside that, I played Mace with Commander Pons and the 212th, along with General Kenobi, Rex, and the Republic Clone Commandos. And I played Obi Mace in 4 out of 5 of my matches. My one match with Anakin and Kiadi was my only loss for the weekend. I had a ton of fun playing Obi Mace for most of the event. Huge fan of Pons post rework, from a model that was this tax you had to take to be able to take Mace to now, providing basically infiltrate to whatever Republic support you want to put in that spot. I think that glow up is very real. I think it really helps with the Republic matchup on missions like Never Tell Me the Odds and especially First Contact. I still think for some other reasons, Republic is going to struggle on odds with most of the out of activation movement being dashes and still struggling to get across the board. But I found this list did amazing on Sabotage, did amazing on First Contact, and a good representation on shifting too. Really happy with it overall. Mace and Obi is one I'm going to continue playing with to really, really fine tune. I do want to try without Pons, but overall was very happy with how it performed. It really creates this impenetrable wall at the midline of, unless you have a good diceless displacement, it can be really hard to get around these models or get them off of points.
I do have a question, because I actually haven't played against you in this list, but how aggressively do you try to get hunkers on your units with the Obi Mace pairing?
The most aggressive I've ever been with it.
Okay.
I would say there was more times where I just didn't attack to be able to take the hunker than I did put an attack through. At most 50-50. Out of Mace's activations over the weekend, probably 6 times I hunkered without attacking and maybe threw 3 attacks out.
So like even with Mace you were going for the hunker?
More often than not, yeah. And that allows him to both be engaged and stay engaged to make sure that bubble's active.
That makes sense.
You mentioned that you only played one game with Anakin. What are your thoughts on Anakin after the event?
Yes, we'll call it one game, so not a concrete opinion here, but even, watching some other games take place, seeing some of the counter options, I think it's a great list. I think Anakin with Cam is certainly his best home. I think this list is mostly figured out. I did find Snips to be underwhelming, and I have found that in both testing and at the event. I think one of the things that really hits this list, I think activation order is really important. I think you want Anakin at the right times for him to be able to do the big play. What definitively lost me this game and took it out of being able to compete for this game is a turn with Anakin where all he needed to do was wound Wicket. So I played this into Ewoks. To be honest, felt pretty confident with the matchup. All Anakin needed to do was wound Wicket. And first roll was 5 fails, 3 strikes. Wicket got 3 blocks, so nothing went through. The second attack, I had 2 crits go through and did 5 damage. And that was 3 force into an activation, no wound. And that activation was the difference between me scoring 1 that turn and taking a couple points. It was a swing I wasn't able to come back from in for the rest of the game. And to be clear, I know the odds are certainly in Anakin's favor to be able to pull that wound, but this is why I'm hesitant in a heavily competitive space. If I'm looking at a GT in the future and taking Anakin, this is a primary whose entire job is to wound something, and that still relies on dice. And Anakin's expertise is incredible. His tree is incredible, but 8 dice can still go bad. We're not talking Vader dice where you're throwing 11, 12 dice. This is a available roll.
There's some similarities too in the Empire side, where this can also happen to Iden as well. You know, even with 9 dice, Iden can whiff, and it makes you feel real sad, right? And I think you're right, is that when you have these characters that are dice reliant, you can have these moments sometimes. Like you had mentioned that it was the difference between scoring 1 or even 4, right? And so if that's not generally your playstyle, which I don't think it is, Kyle, you've never been really into like Maul's a great example too, right? Like it's another one that you've never really been into. So there is a little bit of risk reward, I think, with Anakin as well too. And again, like I said, we've seen it with Iden. When Iden on 9 dice, let's say she has 4 or 5 fails too, it can definitely turn the tide of a game.
100%. And you know, you've had similar criticism of Vader too in the past, where he's got kind of this one job to do and the dice can just go wrong. Now he's rolling a lot of dice, but Anakin's 2 attacks should be incredibly reliable,
especially with his attack tree,
especially with the combat tree. So I think that this is partially an anomaly. So this is something I'm going to keep testing. But, you know, I really like Kiadi and his box. I played this with Vader 1 for a while pre-rebalance, and it's what I took to Adepticon. What I liked from it was the reliable attack trees. You know, I know that my unit is going to very reliably do what I need it to do. Kiadi Mundi and Shakti both are so much more valuable when you're able to reliably get through their tree. And it saves you so much on force to not have to spend for those force push on Kiadi. So I'm actually curious myself, because we haven't seen many people still playing around with Kiadi Vader. I still think it's a very good list. You know, secondary might change in that list, and I might play with something like Barriss, who I'm very interested to get back on the table. But this is one I'm going to play with a little more. I wasn't incredibly happy with it, and had a really great experience with Mace and Obi.
Nice. Well, speaking of Mace, primary of the week, we had a vote in our Discord. If you've not joined our Discord yet, in the show notes today, when we release this episode, you will see the link for our Discord. Come join our community. We've been having great chats, strategy, painting, anything else you want to come talk to. So Mace is our primary of the week.
It sure is. So jumping into Jedi Master Mace Windu. This was voted by the community in the Discord for our primary of the week. So if you want to jump into that conversation and choose a primary, again, as Sean mentioned, jump into the Discord, join in that conversation. Let's dive into what Mace does newly after rebalance. So kicking it off, and this hasn't changed on this card, is Rush to Action. At the start of this unit's activation, choose another Allied Galactic Republic unit. Each character in this unit and each character in the chosen unit may dash. So Mace is just kicking off the action with dashing a full unit. This kind of movement where you can move a full unit as well as moving yourself. It's really powerful depending on the positioning and the mission. It is going to help swing multiple points in a turn for Mace and get bodies where you need them, which is going to be really important for Mace. Mace's key ability is Shatterpoint. So when an allied unit is chosen to activate with a Shatterpoint card, before that unit activates, resolve an effect based on this unit's active stance. If this unit's active stance is Vin Vapad, one character in this unit may dash and make a 5 dice attack. So if your Shatterpoint is flipped and Mace is on his Vapad stance, he gets to dash and make a 5 dice attack. If his stance is Jedi Master, he gets to refresh 2 force and heal 3. Both of these are incredible abilities to add on. You know, Shatterpoint turn is typically going to be a good one, right? Shatterpoint's already such a powerful card to flip in your order deck. where you get to choose the unit you want, the unit that's going to be most impactful on the table. And on top of that, you're getting one of these two amazing effects where you're going to dash Mace, he makes a 5 dice attack, or you're going to regain some of that force that you spent, and Mace is going to be able to heal 3. It's going to help Mace stay up and active. This is going to help Mace get to where he needs to go. Typically, I'm starting him on that Vapod stance. So if I flip the Shatter Point early, he gets a dash. And then later, I'm flipping to Jedi Master. So if Mace is activated, if Shatter Point's coming later, after Mace is activated, I'm going to refresh that force later in my deck. What are your guys' thoughts on the Shatter Point with the changes?
So I really like the flexibility behind it, being able to kind of pick and choose what you think is important at any point when you take his turn, but also just the fact that now you get the benefit no matter who you activate. Like before, it was always, oh, I have to activate Mace, despite the fact that maybe someone else's turn would have been better. But I need that force back, or I need to really put the hurt on something. And now you don't have to make that choice.
I've always been a big fan of toolbox abilities within this game, abilities that give you choice. So this feels like there's a lot more choice given whatever the particular game state is. So I that's an aspect that I really like about it.
And it is a super flexible ability. I think there's a case for both. I think you can make lists where both are kind of the primary place you want to be. In playing Obi Mace so far, I have really appreciated the Force Refresh. I've had plenty of opportunity to use it and make sure that I can use that defensive maneuver on my clones. Even sometimes to just gain a hunker, even if they're already in the place that I need them to be. It allows them to make that attack plus get that hunker token that they need. And it added a ton of flexibility, especially in Struggle 2 and 3, where something might have a wound or two. Tempered Aggression is the next ability, and a much improved one. So when this character attacks or defends before dice are rolled, this unit may spend 1 to 3 force. If it does, that character adds 1 die to its roll for each force spent. This is pricey. It really is. That is a high cost for a couple dice.
I think it's appropriately costed.
It's a very steep exchange rate. When you look at what other people can get for 1 force, a single dice, not even like a reroll or seeing results first, but just a single die for a force is a steep price.
Yeah, because it's no longer a reroll, it's adding dice.
So do you think that is just because of the overall package of Mace? That's why we see, right? Yeah, the overall package, and then
Mace can afford it.
Right, exactly. But within the overall package, I think that's appropriate.
On the flip side, if this was 1 force for 2 to 3 dice, I would be concerned that it was
for sure.
Good.
Yeah, that'd be too
so
much.
It's what you use your remaining force on, because Mace brings so much. When I was talking with Kyle the other day, I likened it to taking a can of a high octane gas and going, well, I got nothing better to do this or use this for, and dumping it on a bonfire. It does the job, but maybe there's something less pricey that you could fuel your fire with.
With this ability in particular, I think Mace can take 2 different roles in your squad. I think he can play the support piece or the aggressor, depending on how you're building your list. And if you're playing Mace as the aggressor, you're spending a little more time in Vapod. The Vapod tree does a whole lot of damage. And I do think if you're going for and you want that wound out of him, I do think it's key to spend some of that force. I know I had 2 games where ending a struggle or ending the game relied on a Mace flip and him securing a wound, and those were the times. Well, I've got the force. If I get this through, I close the game or close the struggle. And I went for that 3 force spend on the attack.
And it's nice to have it to do that.
Yep, having the option is huge.
Yeah, the option is incredible. I've actually spent more consistently on his defensive roles than the offense. And when he's sitting on Jedi Master or holding a point, in a lot of cases, 6 dice on the defense on Jedi Master, up to 7 if he's hunkered, which in just about every case he was. I typically spent 1 to 2, depending on, looking at what's left of my deck. Do I have the force economy to be able to spend this? For attacks where okay, hey, my opponent needs, 3 successes to get that double shove to get him off the point. Let's throw some extra dice in there to make sure we avoid that. I was getting very reliable defense out of them. He's going to get rid of a crit on 2 expertise as well as a hit. And what you do need is some blocks in there on top of that mitigation. So adding some extra dice ups that reliability. The last one, and his identity is this party's over. While a character in this unit is engaged, allied Galactic Republic characters within 5 have Steadfast and Protection. Steadfast and Protection as a combination are incredible with the mobility that you can take in a Republic list. It's pretty easy to keep Mace engaged in a lot of cases. The dash on the Shatter Point can help that even further. Keeping him engaged is going to be key to keeping that bubble open because the clones like the protection. It makes a huge difference on their survivability. Mace likes to have it himself. So keeping Mace engaged is really important, and there's a lot of tools you can take to do that. He is a little vulnerable to being displaced, but overall, I think there's tools now to keep him there. Mace was moved from 6 squad points to 7. And this allows Mace a lot more flexibility in what list he can bring. He can now bring secondaries like Rex and Snips, which can move him. And Pawn's got a bit of a change too, which still puts him as a key role in a lot of different lists with Mace.
Who are a few models that Mace doesn't want to see across the board?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think there can be anything with displacement can be a little tough. You have some really common things like Kiadi and Shakti, which can really easily remove Mace from the points. And there's a few others with Force Push out there. Mando and Maul have really great displacement that can just move him off that point. Anything that can do that without an attack, especially playing him with Kenobi, Steadfast Protection, and Knowledge and Defense all do nothing if you're able to move Mace off the point without an attack action. Inquisitors is another great one.
I was just going to say a little Empire spice here. I think Moff Gideon's very good when you line him up against Mace. The new Inquisitors, Fifth Brother, either of the sisters, I think, line up very well. The Fourth Sister in particular with the tiebreaker again, just for, the Empire side of things.
So interestingly, I think one thing that Mace probably doesn't want to see across from him is Kenobi, because one, he very much relies on shoves to get things off of points if he's not killing them. And 2, Kenobi's knowledge and defense is a way of staying out of engagement with Mace that a lot of other factions don't have access to. I mean, obviously, if you save a move or something for after his attack, you don't have to worry about it. But if you are relying on your movement to get into position to attack someone, and then they just walk away at the end of your turn, then Mace's "this party's over" bubble just pops.
Yeah, my final match at Battle for Wrath was OB Mace against OB Anakin. And in talking with Riz was my opponent, in chatting about the game, a lot of that came to who got to points first, because it can be really tough for both lists to remove. I also think Knowledge and Defense does some really fun things against Anakin in avoiding that.
Yes, it does.
In avoiding that second attack. So I think that's going to be a common counter that we see. But Mace is the topic here.
Oh, I was just saying that's something that's good into Mace.
So what comes in? Yeah, what comes in his box?
Mace's box hasn't changed, even though his point cost has. You've got Pawns as a 3 cost and the ARF Troopers as a 3 cost support. This is a fantastic buy for Republic players. The ARF Troopers are still an absolute staple to the faction, with now supporting Fire Dash, which is huge ability. One of the things that we didn't touch on yet is Mace now has a ranged attack post rebalance. And with Mace on that side, on the Jedi Master side, Mace has 2 shoves on 2 successes. So that ranged attack at 6 dice and decent expertise is still reliably going to get you a couple shoves. And with the ARF Troopers in tow, is going to help Mace dash and get to that point he needs to get to. I think this box is a cornerstone to Republic list building. We know how powerful Infiltrate as an ability is for units like the Rebel Commandos and the ISF, and Republic having access to a similar ability with pawns is such a huge buff to playing missions like First Contact and Never Tell Me the Odds, as it helps you hold those initial points.
Amazing.
So
I put it as a buy. I think it's great.
Oh, yeah, if
it's
you're a
great.
Republic player, it is a 100% buy.
I think it's
Yeah, I
also worth mentioning, especially in terms of buying the box, if you are really focused in on Republic, Mace is fairly unique in his ability to be an anchor for that because he is so flexible. I know with a lot of anchor lists, big part of the problem is all three of your lists or all three of your teams end up looking fairly similar because you're basing it around one primary. And that primary has a certain way they want to play. Mace is able to switch between different play styles. So you can have your aggression list and you can have your defensive list, and they both have Mace in it and play completely different because Mace has that ability to switch stances and play very differently. So because he's essentially a switch hitter, he's able to play that anchor role and have those very different lists that are designed to go into certain things. And I know that's something that we struggle with in what units can actually be an anchor. There's not a lot in the game that can do that.
Yeah, and I do think he's a flexible enough primary where, there's not many matchups where I would say, oh, he's just going to be horrible.
Yep. He always has an out.
So, Titus, I'm going to ask you to list build with me here for a second.
Okay.
So I already spoke about my OB Mace list, which I was a huge fan of. But you mentioned that Mace is a pretty anchorable primary. So I'd like to put together a Mace anchor list.
Okay. So starting
So
with
we're-
Mace OB, I assume?
We're going to start with Mace.
Okay.
And considering we're playing Mace in every single game, I think I want to put Rex with Mace.
I would agree.
Cool. As probably the best Galactic Republic secondary. I don't think there's any list where I would not want Rex. So he's being stapled here. And as a 3-cost with Mace, I'm pretty sure we're aligned that ARF Troopers are the right answer here.
Yeah, I would go with ARFs here too. I had to think about it for a second, but yeah, I think ARFs are probably the best option here.
I think is the most consistently valuable, especially with Mace's ranged attack now.
Yeah, the ranged attack really tips it over.
Awesome. So let's put Kenobi second. Rex would typically be our go-to as a Kenobi secondary. So where are we looking here?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I've never had to think about it because it's always Rex.
It's always Rex. I could make a case for Wrecker. You've already got a defensive list, and Wrecker's got a big base, which I guess I should break that down a little bit. So you could split Mace and Wrecker up and have a protection bubble on both sides of the board. Then if you are hunkering Wrecker, because he's got a big base, he gets more distance on the knowledge and defense. Not like a significant amount, but it's noticeable when you're doing that he reaches more Ingress points and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have been a huge fan of Wrecker with Obi. That's a ton of health on a model, and with protection and steadfast is really hard to take down.
Yeah, and you may as well double down on the protection because that's what this list is for, is to just make everything unassailable.
Cody was a consideration too, just having defensive maneuver, because having two secondaries.
That's a good option, actually. I would take Cody.
Okay, so let's throw Wrecker in there now, but we reserve the right to go back and make a change here. So support that's going with Obi.
Usually I go in terms of what my personal Obi-Wan Kenobi tier list is Echo and Tech, followed closely by Republic Clone Commandos. So either of those I'd be happy with. 212th are very shortly after that.
Yeah, so the 212th will be somewhere in this list. If it doesn't end up somewhere else, they're going here.
Yeah, and that's my thought, really. If we don't do the 212 here, they are free to go somewhere else. What you really want is something that synergizes with Kenobi, because that's who you're bringing here.
Yeah, I think they're all great here. I don't think that you could go wrong with any of those choices. I think I'd lean Echo and Tech, but you convinced me on the Republic Commandos before Battle for Breath. I was a little hesitant because their attacks are a little lackluster, but scale saved me on multiple occasions.
Yes. One thing I will say,
So-
though, if we are
Yeah.
taking Wrecker, I am much more inclined to go with Echo and Tech because protection covers that 7 hit point problem that they have. And with both Mace and Wrecker giving them protection and Steadfast, they become much more attractive because they roll
Alright.
so many defense dice. And with protection and Steadfast, it's really hard to get through to them.
Okay. I like it. We'll leave Echo and Tech in there.
I will make a
and-
note that if we do go to Cody, then I would go to the Commandos for sure.
Yeah. I would probably push for 212 if we went Cody.
So that's fair.
Them getting that re-roll. Like I had a really good time with 212 over the weekend.
They're great.
Especially with having pawns and starting them up the table. They were able to just defensive maneuver and focus many times. Was a huge fan.
Okay.
So next up, I think adding a revenge piece isn't bad here, considering that Republic is still a little susceptible to some heavy aggro lists. Titus, you and I have both been a fan of Ahsoka Jedi No More since Rebalance.
Yep, this is exactly what I was thinking of for next. So
Nice. Okay, we're on the same page.
I'm
What are we
very much
taking with
inclined to
Ahsoka?
go with Ahsoka.
Yeah, I'm fully on board.
So with that in mind, this is probably to deal with if you go with a ranged aggro list, or if you run into Iden, you're probably going Kenobi Mace. This is more for the melee aggression, in my opinion. You're dealing with Anakin's, Vader's, Kiadi to a lesser degree, but stuff like that where they hit really hard in melee. Ahsoka really shines in that environment, and that lends itself towards wanting to stack the deck in favor of that game plan. So for the secondary, I would be inclined to go Nadar. I know that's not your thing, but I did just finish playing with this list, and I really think the pairing of Ahsoka and Nadar are very good for those melee aggressive lists. Is there any other things you would nominate for the secondary?
So for me, I think it depends on if we end up going Kiadi in Squad 4.
Okay.
Because if Shock T is available here, I think I would lean Shock.
Okay. That makes sense. It's not
But
the
I think
pick I
we're-
would take. I'm not a fan
Yeah.
of Shock T, but we have differences of opinion.
100%. But I think we're both aligned that this is a spot where you can throw that 5 cost, whether that is Nadar, whether that is Shock T.
My biggest hesitation with Shock T is in a Mace list, you already have all the force you need. I don't think you need that extra force. And that's really the biggest thing she's bringing to a list. Obviously, she's good on her own, but
Because a Force Repulse is some pretty big value there.
yes, it is.
Where again, if we're not taking Kiadi, we don't have a list with displacement.
I mean, you could take Plo, but we'll get to that in a second.
I'll throw Nadar in here for now.
Yes.
And we'll sit there. We're at first or fills here. I think again this is going to come down to preference. I certainly would rather have that coordinated fire strain.
Yeah, I could see that here. With a Mace list, yeah, the reason I liked Phil's with the list I was playing was because it was paired with other healing. In this case, I don't think they add enough to really tip you over any kind of critical mass of healing, so it's less valuable. Whereas the strain is always good. I would go with the 501st here.
Yeah, and Mace on Vapod also has multiple strains on his tree, but it turns 3 successes into 6 damage, and then hitting 8 on 4, which is
Yeah, I
pretty
didn't
big
even
increase.
notice that. But yes, that makes his tree very Iden-like.
Yeah, there is a double strain there. Again, the first one is strain or 2 damage, so it equals out, but adding it on that third one is a huge value.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm down
All
for the 501st here.
Squad 4 is our bigger question mark.
I would nominate Kit as my dark horse option, but I think Kiadi is really the best option. It's Kiadi,
Yeah, we are.
Shakti, Padawans.
I'm hesitant on Padawans. I think I would still rather Phil's clones here.
Okay, I can go with that too.
I know you're happy with that. To me, this would make me tempted to change the Ahsoka list.
And sorry, I don't follow you.
If we're going Kiadi, I think I'd rather a 4 and 4 with Ahsoka, just because we're into subpar 3 cost supports. I think hitting this list. We
Okay,
also did not end up using the 212.
I see. Okay, so are we thinking we change Ahsoka, or are we not going Kiadi? Or are we just not taking Shakti?
The Kiadi pairing is still important. I think there's certainly some matchups in the game that displacement is going to be key. I think that'd be what I'd be taking into a lot of Republic mirror matchups. A lot of lists with heavy tiebreakers. I think that is going to be an important piece to have. We'll move the 5-0 first.
That's fine with me. So what are we putting with Ahsoka then?
Wolf and the 212th.
I don't know. I'm not super happy with that, but I like the 212 there.
I like the movement Wolf adds
Yes.
to the overall list. I don't want to drop Ahsoka. I really
No,
don't.
Ahsoka's good.
It could just be Crosshair. We could add some punch to this list.
Yeah, I think I'd go Crosshair over Wolf here. Because, like, Ahsoka also, if you keep her in Jarkai, she hits really hard. So you've got... Okay, what about Cody?
We're going Cody. I think it's Kenobi.
Okay. So we'll stick with Crosshair. I'm happy with Crosshair. And also, he does shore up some of that. If you've got an opponent that hunkers a lot, you can trick shot some of those away. That's helpful.
100%. Yeah, I would be happy taking this list to an event for sure. And I actually think that Ahsoka squad's going to do quite a bit better on odds than the rest of them.
Yeah, I can see
Ahsoka's
that.
fast enough. Crosshair can definitely cross the board.
Yeah, because Ahsoka's pretty darn fast.
Yeah, I'm happy with the list. I think my favorite piece is we just built 4 Republic lists, and we talked about several options and choices in each of them because we're just at a point where there is just
It's a massive faction. Like,
it's a massive faction.
It's
There's
huge.
so many good and playable options. And again, there's options to add Anakin in this list. I think Mace with Vader is interesting.
I still think Kit is a good option.
So there's a ton of other ways you can take this.
It makes me sad that Plo's just completely outshone by Kiadi, because really they do the exact same thing. Kiadi does it better.
Yeah. It is what it is. Awesome. I'll throw it over, Sean. I know you had a list prepared to chat about. Okay, how do we play into Mace?
Yeah, so actually I have a couple of ideas here, and actually, Titus, pre-show, you kind of got me on to thinking about the Moff Thrawn pairing. Grand Admiral Thrawn, Stormtrooper Sergeant, Fifth Brother, Moff Gideon, Death Trooper Escort, and Death Troopers played on Never Tell Me the Odds, right? I think is a very interesting conundrum for a Mace list. You guys have been talking how Republic has some issues on odds, and when we're talking about some of the best out of activation movement in the game, full advances, repositions that do very well on Never Tell Me the Odds, this list for me is the best list that you can have without an infiltrate unit, and it plays extremely well on odds. You also have 2 tiebreakers with Fifth Brother and Moff Gideon, to which you can line up with Mace to take over points. 2 secondaries, again, that move your supports. So you're moving Fifth Brother, and the Death Troopers giving supporting fire dash as well too. So we're talking superior movement, getting to points first. Never Tell Me the Odds, I think, with this list is definitely an interesting puzzle for these Mace lists that you guys are discussing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to face that.
Anything that's going to be able to take a point without an attack is going to be valuable. I think we've got a ton of options in a lot of places, which is just what's so fun about the game right now. Titus, you want to throw a list at us for Mace?
Okay. I was looking at building Mace, and I went, he can go with anything in Republic. That's not particularly interesting. So I thought, okay, well, what do I want to build around? And I know a lot of the talk about Mace is about how much force he brings and keeping him in the Jedi Master side. So I said, okay, let's go with Form 7 Vapad, base it around his dash and make a 5-die attack. To make that better, I decided to throw in Barriss as a secondary as my first step. Because Barriss, her passive ability is she adds 2 dice to a Jedi primary that is attacking something she is also engaged with, and vice versa. She gets 2 dice if she is engaged with something that Jedi primary is also engaged with. This is crucially not tagged as combat action, so his bonus 5 dice attack now goes up to a 7 if Barriss is also there. That was my first step. Because I put a 4-point secondary with him, I have to go with a 3-point, and I've already decided I'm not going Republic for my other squad, so I threw in the Padawans because they care more about Jedi and Force user than about Republic. So it frees me up a little bit. They're fairly flexible. They have good healing, which I've already mentioned I'm a big fan of. So the Padawans are there. It's not crucial to the list, but I really like it. Going to the other primary, I know I still want a Jedi primary because then it'll synergize with Barriss. And I want something that has a 5 dice attack. So that brings me down to the options of Kanan Jarrus or Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is the one I ended up going with. You could go either way, but Luke gives me more options outside of Spectres, and he fits Mace's playstyle a lot more. He's also very defensive. He's also very hard to kill, and he has a bubble around him that helps his team. After that, I went with Obi-2 or Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding. He adds another defensive bubble, getting to disarm things that are attacked near you with his mind trick. It's not quite as exciting as the mind trick we had before, but it is still very powerful. You just kind of park him somewhere, and everything within range 5 of him, now if they get attacked, it's just a bad time for the attacker. And like Mace, yes, I want to base it around his Vapad tree, but if I really need to, I can flip him to the Jedi Master side and feel confident spending that force on mind trick because I'm refreshing too as soon as I Shatterpoint. Finally, once again, Luke is a 7-point primary, so I had to put a 3-point support in there. I went with Lando and R2, mainly because they're rebels and Luke wants to see a rebel around. But it's nice to have something to park on your back point that can't be shot at. They just sit around and do their job and occasionally remove conditions from things if you ever remember they're reactive, which I know I sure don't, but a better player than myself would be able to take advantage of that. Finally, in terms of mission that you bring with this, I was originally going to go Sabotage because I really like the idea of Luke and Mace splitting up and each going to either side because it's a nightmare to try to take those middle points when you have these 2 really tough Jedi there. And that is still an option to go with, but I actually decided to go First Contact because the clever ploy synergizes with Mace's Vapad Shatterpoint really well. In Struggle 1, you can give a dash to any unit. In Struggle 2 and 3, I believe there are options to move Mace, depending on what the struggle layout is. In either case, you're dashing him or repositioning him if you get the option to reposition a primary, and then he also gets to dash and make a 5-die attack after that initial movement has happened. So you're not even activating Mace, but he is double moving and attacking something, which can be really strong when that's not even your turn. He's doing essentially a full activation outside of his activation. I haven't tried it yet, but I think it could be very powerful.
I'm excited to see it on the table. I think if I pulled up your list building app, there's probably 30 plus lists in there just since rebalance of just things you want to try.
It's just like a cookbook, just like page after page after page after page of lists. Amazing.
Sean, I know you have a little extra you want to add.
Something tonight, episode 4.
I'm down for a little something.
The little something. We are going to be doing our first contest for the podcast. Speaking of Mace, I happen to have This Party's Over squad pack that we are going to be doing a giveaway for listeners of the podcast. So very, very simple. All you need to do is go to the Discord. The link will be in the show notes. Join our Discord, join the community, get involved. We have different faction sections. So in the Galactic Republic section, after you join the Discord, please post your favorite Mace list. It can be a showdown list, premier list, wherever you're at within the game. Just post your favorite pairing with Mace Windu. And then based on the amount of people that we get posting their lists, I will randomly select one individual to win This Party's Over squad box. And I will send it to you.
I'm
the more
actually...
creative the more cool list, the happier I will be It won't help your chances in winning at all, but I'll be very happy with
Titus
you.
will just be more impressed. But yes, again, very 3 steps. Join our Discord, get involved with the community, post your favorite Mace list, randomly selected. I will probably leave it for a week, I think is probably good post show, and then I will do a random selection. I'll let whoever wins it know that they've won it.
100%. And I'm actually going to double that because Josh Pound, one of the members of our local community, donated another Mace box to us to give away. So we are actually giving away 2 Mace Squad
2
packs here.
times the Mace. All right, we will do 2 selections a week after this episode is posted.
Well, that's exciting. The last thing I will say is since our last episode, we are now on Apple Podcasts. So if you want to check us out over there, you can absolutely do that. I know that's my go-to podcast app, but thank you for listening on Spotify, YouTube, and now Apple. And we're a ton of other places too now that we've got the Apple Connect in there. So check us out wherever you listen to your podcast. I want to thank everybody that's jumped in to listen so far. The community's been absolutely incredible. Please take a couple seconds to rate and review the podcast on both Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This helps more people find us and lets us know how we're doing. So please take the time to rate and review. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.